Chris Mader at the University of Miami Frost Institute for Data Science and Computing. And it's an institute, and we work with lots of investigators. Usually we write software or data, like data engineering things. But we've also, and you've seen like a couple, like this is Tim's earlier presentation here, and Julio presented some software, a software framework that we've written, and that's the usual kind of stuff that we do. But we also picked up 3D reconstruction and basically things like aerial surveying over the past 8 to 10 years. And so how many people here are familiar with using drones for aerial surveying, like low altitude? Oh, like a lot of people, actually. Okay, so that's good. So then I don't need to spend too much time on this. So what I mean specifically by aerial surveying is using a drone with a camera to go through and create like orthoprojected georeferenced imagery. Like these are examples from various places that we've flown the drone. And the reason we do it is to do things like support, creating site plans. So this is like when we're collaborating with some people in the School of Architecture. This is like a restoration or preservation project. Create GIS data sets. You can print them out because they're really high resolution and put them like on a wall. And then to support a participatory mapping project, and then create paper maps and things like that from them. So those are all kinds of things that we've done with them. So Big Cypress is actually a little different than the stuff we've done. Most of the things we were doing in the past are like urban environments. This is a tree survey. And we've done, photographed a few state parks and things like that in Florida or other things. But this is something we started this winter, so 2025 in the winter. Because there's 2 seasons in Florida. There's a wet season and a dry season. It's drier in the late winter and early spring. And so these are some students going out, and it's basically collecting data about some trees in 54 existing 1 hectare plots that were like initially surveyed about, I think, 25 years ago, and then adding 18 other ones. And so they want to collect information on 3 different species, which are a pine, these cypress trees, and then palmetto. So if you're unfamiliar with Big Cypress, it's above Everglades National Park. It's about 70 miles west of Miami, and our study site is that purple rectangle. And it's 720,000 acres. And as I said, so there's cypress domes, pines, and palmetto, which are the trees that we're looking at in those plots. It also has, panthers, alligators, snakes. And the thing that I put in here, because I thought it was interesting, is the Wikipedia article states that hiking throughout Big Cypress is enjoyable, year-round. So I don't know. I mean, so these are the maps, and they look like that. So we thought, so this is like it's not a big. We're hoping to get more funding, but it's a small project. We have an internal grant, and we thought that we could use these imagery maybe to support the production or the updating of these kinds of existing maps. And so it looks pretty good. This is a section of an image that we created, and you can see, if you zoom in, you can see like, you can see the different trees. These are cypress trees, the white ones, and then there's a palmetto, and then there's some pine trees over there. And then for reference, that's a satellite image at the same scale. Which, I'm sure there's better aerial photography, but that, I'm trying to. So so I don't need to talk about this too much. I put these slides in there, but I wasn't sure how many people were familiar with using drones for low altitude aerial surveying. But you fly a drone, you get these images that are a bunch of different images. You use a computational technique to then create this orthoprojected image, and then you can do that kind of make drawings and scale them. So the current way of doing this, like the commodity way of doing it, is use this process called structure for motion. It creates 3D models, and then you orthoproject it. And the key thing here is that the orthoprojection, preserves the dimension, not the physical dimensions, but it removes perspective from the image so that you can make measurements on it after you've scaled it. And then, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about our drone, just for like the way we did in Big Cypress, because then you have to georeference the image. And the classic way to georeference it is to use a rover and a base station. And you go with the rover and you collect control points like this. In an urban environment, you can collect like a manhole cover. You can see whatever's visible that you think will be in the image. You get those control points, and then you go through and you georeference them. In Big Cypress, if it's like this, it would be kind of more of a pain to go and do it. So the drone that we have has this PPK, post-processing kinematics GPS unit on it, as well as the GPS for navigation, so that we can use we don't have to go out there and collect those points. So the drone acts like the rover, and it goes around, and every time it takes a photo, it gets basically a control point with that photo, that using some other math that we can use for georeferencing. And fortunately, Florida has a really nice CORS network, and we can go in, so we don't even have to bring a base station with us, if you know what this is. So you create an account here. I can go put in a time period, pick some of these stations, and get the data that I can use for the to finish that tagging. And then you can do this digitization and create a geospatial data set. So then the rest of it is just going to be about our experience in Big Cypress to do permitting. And if everyone's done this, then maybe there's a lot of people who are familiar with it. But I also so before you can fly the drone in Big Cypress, and this is the drone that we use there, which is a Wingtra, which I love this machine. It's a great drone. I don't know if you saw the camera at the beginning. And so it just goes up, takes off vertically, and it's going to flop over and flies the survey path and takes a bunch of photographs. But before you do that, you have to meet all these different regulations. And that's what I wanted to discuss because, so there's, in the case of the national park, if you work for the Department of the Interior, they fly airplanes and drones and things like that. But if you don't, then you have to meet the Department of the Interior requirements too, which they told us was the first time they gave anybody, for our thing, a permit to do it in Big Cypress. So it was kind of interesting. So that was the thing to share. So the FAA regulations, require, if you're going to fly for if you're going to operate drones for an institutional purpose, it requires a remote pilot who follows this rule. This is called the rule. It's like the Part 107 rule. And you need to register the drone. The drone should be remote ID compliant, and you might need an airspace authorization. So just go through this. If you want to be a remote pilot, you can do, it's a study for an exam, it's 60 questions, costs $150, and you have to take a test every 2 years to keep it recurrent. And you create an account at this FAA website called FAA Safety, and that's where you maintain all your documents, and you can get them out and use them and things like that. So the first thing is to become a remote pilot, and then you need to register the drone, which is a different website, which is the FAA Drone Zone. And once you put the drone in there, you can get like this number, and then you write that number down on the drone. In case it crashes, then they know who's responsible for it. And now it also needs to have remote ID. Like it's a requirement. You can fly it without a remote ID, but you can't fly it everywhere. And it's just easier. You can also buy a module to attach to your drone, but it's just easier if you're going to do this to go find a drone that already has this capability on it. And all the new commercial drones should probably have them. And then the last thing normally you'd want to do is see if you need an airspace authorization to fly the drone, where you want to fly it. And so this is an aeronautical chart. That purple box is our study area, and you can see like these circles are all controlled airspace. And so it kind of is on the edge of one. So if you go and look a little closer, it's really on the edge of it, kind of, which is okay. And it's not too hard to do that either. You can use the FAA, set up this service called LANC, which I don't know what the acronym stands for anymore. I should have reviewed it. But basically, you can use a mobile app to request an automated airspace authorization. So you go in there, you put in the parameters of your flight, and as long as you're following the rule and not trying the rule I mentioned earlier, not making any, you don't want to get a waiver, then it'll usually just authorize it unless there's something going on. And there are different vendors, commercial vendors, like Aloft is one, that you can use their app and you can get that authorization. And you have to also put your information about yourself in there, obviously, and stuff. So I'm just going to digress for a second because I thought it was interesting. This airport that's right there is known as KT&T. And it was, wow, okay. And it's like an airport in the middle of a swamp, but it's built in the 60s because they thought there was going to be like supersonic air transport. And then they didn't do it. And so when we went there, it was still like this swamp. But now this is what it is. And so we're going to go back out there. I don't know if it's like an issue, but this is like now become what that space is. In case you ever wondered where this place was, it's right there. So that's that airport, or this space right in here. Okay, so that would meet all the FAA requirements. Since it's in Big Cypress, then we have to meet these other Department of Interior requirements. So it's all the FAA, plus you have to apply for a research permit and fill out some other docs. So the research permit, it's another website you can go to. It's called RPRS, and it's really it's not too hard. You go in there, you fill things out, you get a research permit eventually, and then it goes back and forth maybe a little bit. And then this is when we got to the drone. So for the drone, we had to add two other sets of documentation, and it repeats various things. But the key things is they wanted to know, like emergency contingency procedures, what's going to happen if you lose, like the drone flies away, how are you going to coordinate with people? And so then we had to create a map, and I'm just going to just really quickly. So to support those plans, I had to actually make a map. So so here, these are all the survey sites. All these dots went through, and actually the blue squares are 500 meter by 500 meter squares that we laid over them, and then the actual yellow ones are the survey blocks that we planned, because it's not worth like just flying the drone into like little spots out there. And so this is the software. This is like one flight over parts of two of those survey blocks. And that's how we went through and planned it. And then eventually produced this map and a bunch of other written material and gave it to them, and then they let us fly it. And the reason I put this there is the other thing that was very helpful is our drone is on this thing called the Blue List, which is maintained by the Defense Innovation Unit, which somebody I'd never heard of. But if it's on this list down here, this Wing Tre 1, Gen 2, then it's approved for the Department of Defense. So then you don't have any other questions about it. You're flying the drone in like the national park because they did ask some questions like that. Does it meet our requirements? Okay. And then operations were a little more complex too. So once you get out there, I'm not complaining, actually, it was a great time. So then you fill out another piece of paper. Every time we would go out and fly, we would tell them where we're going, what this radius is of where the flight is. It would go to I would go up to these guys in Tallahassee dispatch, and then they would put a NOTAM, which is a notice to let people know we're flying a drone in that radius. That's not one of ours. I just had it there because it's over that same spot. And then we had to access this road. And this road has a gate on it. It's like just getting into the road is like a process by itself. And the road is 14 feet wide, so it's a single lane road. And there are actually some oil wells back there. And so every time you drive on the road, you have to have a CB, and you announce, there's a bunch of markers, and you announce, I'm coming this way on the road, they're going that way on the road, stuff like that. And then they also gave us, because there was actually the first day we were out there, tankers like Peter? Is that here? Yeah, Peter. Just like the ones so there was like a fire operation, and so we had to coordinate with these guys in Tallahassee Control, and they also train, we had to do like radio training for all of these things and things like that. And this is they gave us a cheat sheet, and the title of it was Key for 3 and Clear You'll Be. So that was like to hold it down, and then you call the Tallahassee dispatch. We actually had a call sign, which is Foxtrot 31. It's great. And so these are the results. We made 15 square kilometers of 1.5 centimeter resolution imagery. The drone we use is Wing Tre 1 Gen 2 with the PPK unit. All of this software. And if you want to do it, these are all the accounts that were required to do it, to set up. And then these other two things I would definitely look at if you're going to fly a drone, to put together. And I guess that's, and these are the acknowledgements, and that's it. All right.
We definitely have time for one question for Chris. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
What kind of lead time did you need?
A month to get everything together. It was months.
Start to finish.
I would say it was from I would say about 5 months. It took about 5 months until we were able to go out there and actually drive, because we also had to do things like meet with people. Like we had to do like an orientation run on the road, like that with a ranger, and then go through the radio protocol for the calling. So there's like a repeater. You call to like a repeater, and then the repeater goes to Tallahassee, and then that whole, because I've never done this before, like that whole communication protocol with those guys. Because we tell them when it would launch, we'd let them know, and they would say, okay to launch, and all kinds of things like that. So it was, 5 months.